I'm here. We got a great guest today. We got Carmine Colace. If you don't know him, he is a Massachusetts USA Wrestling Hall of Fame inductee. Mr. Colace, how you doing? Great to have you here.
It's a good day for wrestling. Thank you. Thanks
It
for
is
having me.
every day. So,
Yes, that's what I tell the kids all the time.
yep. So, like I said, you were inducted into the Massachusetts Wrestling Hall of Fame, right?
National Hall of Fame
National
and a
Hall of
mass
Fame. Yeah, yeah.
and
Oh,
and New England
sorry
and New
about that.
England.
Sorry for me then.
Oh, it's okay.
But yeah,
Doesn't
National Hall of Fame inductee. So you've been around this sport basically your whole life then, I imagine.
Yes, I have. I went out for the sport when I was in 10th grade to stay in shape for football. I tried to go out as a freshman, but my mom wouldn't sign off on the waivers, so I just signed it myself the next year. And they didn't find out until I was a senior that I was wrestling.
Nice. So your signature looked like your mom's then. It was good enough.
Yeah, it was good enough. I didn't care. They
And that
were
was that was at Franklin High School?
what's that?
Was that at Franklin High School?
Yes, I'm sorry, at Franklin High School. So I
Awesome.
fell in love with the sport, you know, and I had an opportunity to take over the program at a really young age.
Yeah, fresh out of
Um,
high school, right?
yes, they had no coach. I applied for the position. I was 19 years old.
Mm.
And in fact, I was dating my future wife, Gail. She was a senior in high school, and I was the head varsity coach.
That's funny. How did you find out about the position? Like, did the athletic director come to you, or did you just hear about it?
He did. Jerry Leone, a famous football coach from back in the 70s and famous athletic director. I was really good friends with his, best friends with his son, Jerry. We were captains of the football team together. And he had asked if I wanted to give it a try. And I said, okay. I came back after I graduated high school to help out with the program with Lou Veracchi for a year. And in the next year, I was in college at the time and just decided to fall into the family business and give coaching a try.
And back when you were in high school, playing football and wrestling, did you always think that you were going to go into coaching, whether it was for football or for wrestling?
Uh, I always liked. I think I had the bug for coaching at a really young age. I had four younger brothers, so I was always doing stupid stuff in the backyard
Yeah.
with the brothers, like football plays and whatnot, and showing them wrestling moves. I also played baseball in high school, so I was a rare thing from today, a three-sport athlete in high school.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I was a baseball and wrestler with the love for football, so I respect that. It's tough,
Yeah,
especially nowadays when people want to focus on the one sport.
yeah, so true. And I loved football too. It was a great experience for me. Coach Al Sutherland, I loved the guy. Made it. He was tough and made it fun for everybody.
Hmm. So, how you got this job as a 19-year-old, right?
Yes.
So, were you I imagine like were you scared going into it, about to be coaching these people that you probably called teammates a few years ago?
Uh, yeah, I wasn't sure of myself. I used to take a book, one of those old books from back in the 70s that showed wrestling page by page and break it out. I had no clue. I really didn't. And one thing I did do right, though, I really admired the Milford High School program. They were a powerhouse
They
back
still
then,
are
as they
now.
are. And I used to go to all their matches. I wanted to mimic my program after them. So I would learn from other coaches, but a little bit of the time, it took a while to get on track and figure out how to do things. But if I saw something I like, I'd steal it from someone else. As far as technique wise, and listen to a lot of people and So I never
That's the
intended.
thing with coaching, like if you see one team is doing something that's working, you're gonna think, oh, why don't we try that? You know?
Yeah, exactly. I never got into coaching and really never intended to be like a perennial state power. It was just like, okay, I figured we win a few matches and see where it goes.
hmm So, going into kind of or after your first couple seasons, or was Franklin, were they a strong program while you were there?
We were
While you
okay.
wrestled there,
It
I
was
mean.
just
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just different back then. There was no optional start. It was like second period, one guy's on top, third period, the other guy's on top. You start on your feet. It was just different style. And back then, you could be in good shape and learn, know three moves and win.
hmm
Um, and that's the way kind of how we were. We were very average at best in high school, when I was in high school.
So after you took the reins of the program, when did you start to see the tone of the team change?
Well, I tell you, we took some lumps. My first year, we won our last match of the year.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Actually, I want to hear about that first. Your first couple years of the program. I imagine it wasn't too hot.
it was
So
it was brutal. I mean, we our first match we tied. My first coaching match we tied. No, actually, we got thumped by Assabet Valley. I never forget it. And then as the year went on, we had a tie. We tied somebody, and then we won our very last match of the year. And we struggled for really bad for 4 years. Just trying to get some kids out for the team. I think we only had 14, 15 kids on the team out of 12 weight classes, and trying to get some athletes out. I had three kids. I got tortured with these three kids that came out for wrestling, and I won't say who they are, but between the three of them wrestling varsity for 3 years, they had a total of 5 wins in 3 years. So, and I had nobody else to put in. So, I mean, the first few years were really tough. It was a lot of questioning. What am I doing? Should I keep doing this?
yeah, I mean, and then when did after you got over those humps, uh, I imagine I imagine who your assistant coaches too, were they kind of down about the
They were,
unsuccessful times at first, or did you guys know it was gonna be some lows before you hit highs?
yeah, we didn't know where we were going with it. I had some young, same age as me, young assistant coaches. Steve Lasky ended up moving on to North Attleboro and winning a state title there at North Attleboro later on in his career. He coached with us for 3 or 4 years, and he worked really hard with our kids, and he had an opportunity to take over that program. I gave my hand with that too, as well. And but when I decided to actually do something, I remember sitting in a gym at Bridgewater Raynham. Division II South sectionals. There were like 18, 20 teams in each section back then, and finishing in last place and only scoring 13 points. And we didn't have anybody. We didn't have anybody make it to the second day of the sectionals. It was so, never mind states.
Yeah.
I was so bummed out. So I went the second day to watch the wrestling and stuff, and it's just like, you know what? I just need to do something. And the good thing is we had the entire team back. We didn't have any seniors on the team. So we went from finishing in last to the following year, we went 14-2 and finished fourth. So we started getting a little success, fourth in the section. And we kind of, when we started getting involved with USA Wrestling in off season, trying to do anything, we had a weightlifting program. We didn't have a club back then. We had no access to a wrestling room or a wrestling mat. So whatever we could do, there were a couple places that we could go back then for wrestling, but we would just meet up on Saturdays at a tournament and just go to tournaments. And USA Wrestling back then was just freestyle. So I didn't know anything about freestyle, So for almost a season and a half, I kept score at the scoring table, and that's how I would learn how to coach freestyle and what works best and stuff. And we slowly started to climb and get a little bit better each year. And then in 1989, the 89-90 season, we went from state chumps to state champs. We won our first state title. We had a great year. We finished won Lowell Holidays by 50 points. We had 3 champs and 5 thirds. Took second in New England's.
Wow.
But it was still a struggle back then to get kids out for the team. They were all scared to come out for wrestling.
Hmm.
We did have a bunch of goons on the team. Tough kids. Principal would call me in every once in a while. Can you do something about this kid? He can't behave. It's not wrestling season, and he's going nuts in this way. What do you want me to do? There's no wrestling season.
Yeah.
But in the next 6 years, we won states 4 times, finished second twice. And just still didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah. And how old were you at that time?
I was 28.
Yeah, not even 30 yet, and still doing great things. It's insane.
It was a lot of fun. I always believed in having a lot of fun. I used to tell the kids, wrestling sucks if we don't have fun because it's so hard. And I was usually the biggest kid in the room, but the kids worked hard. They responded to that, giving kids nicknames and doing goofy things. I've always done a lot of crazy things, and the kids like it. It was always a struggle to get kids out for the team. It was only a handful of years where we've had 30 kids or more on the team. So we always did really well with what we had. We had good athletes, but it was tough getting kids to come out. There's nobody in the school system. I don't work in the school system. I can't really recruit in the hallways and stuff. So that was the biggest struggle I think we had back then.
So, and when did you start? Were there clubs then at that time too? I think you already said there weren't any, right?
There really wasn't anything around back
When
then.
did
But
when did you start to take the reins and develop a kind of a wrestling club?
Well, I always thought of myself as thinking outside the box. I like to figure out things from how would you call it when you reverse engineering, and so it's like they have all these other programs for basketball and football, hockey, everything else, all these sports in the off season. I go, a wrestler can't go shoot takedowns in the field.
Yeah.
Go down the field, you can go shoot hoops there, you go to the ice rink and skate, and they have all these travel teams. So I'm thinking, why can't we do like an all-star club or a place where kids can go and wrestle, because the schools would not allow you to use their facility. So it always had to be something private. So, they found a place in 1994, the Hockomock Wrestling Club. That's what we got started. So we've been doing wrestling club for 30 years. And we were one of the first ones to really charge the kids to go. I had to pay rent, and money's got to come from somewhere. They would have open mats in different places, like in Brockton, a couple other places too. But I kind of wanted like that feel of club wrestling. Kids come in, they pay a monthly fee. We take them to tournaments, and so that was a learning experience as well. I remember when North Attleboro, before they won their first state title, they would come in. I used to call it the Red Wave. They would bring 15, 20 kids to club and all dressed in red because that's the school colors. Like, holy cow. And all of a sudden, the kids just kept wrestling. There's a saying, and I got that, it's on our club wall, you just got to keep wrestling. And it's so true. Get on the mat. Every time you get on the mat, you get a little bit better.
Yep, 100%. Repetition and practice, that's what makes perfect,
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you started these clubs, were kids wrestling year round before like they are now, or do you think it really is the access to clubs that these kids do wrestle year round?
Some kids were wrestling year round. Yep. There was just freestyle back then. So if you wanted to have a club, it was a USA Wrestling. USA Wrestling played a big part back then. They provided a lot of tournaments. Every Saturday there was a tournament. We used to go to the regionals. We started going to cadet nationals, junior nationals. A lot of our kids did a lot of freestyle. Jeff Gore did a really good job back in the day, providing opportunity for kids.
Mhm.
And then a lot of the folk style stuff started coming around. I remember going to the senior nationals the first year they had it, senior nationals at the University of Pittsburgh. It was kind of like the first off-season folk style tournament. There weren't a lot of them. There weren't a lot of them, and kids liked doing the folk style. It was still a struggle to get kids to do freestyle. And I took my brother out there. My brother Danny went to wrestling at Missouri, and he took third there. You know, he had to be a state champ back then. No waivers to get in. So there were like 350 state champs at that tournament, and from all over the country. And so club started, I think, once facilities or clubs started doing some folk style, clubs started to develop more and more.
Yeah. So, and you said your first one was a Hockomonk Wrestling Club, right?
Yeah, I was in this old bakery, and there was the room was perfect. I bought a mat for the place, fixed it up a little bit. Parents were scared to drop off kids there because it was just like a
Yeah, it looked like
ratty old building.
their
But
house. Yeah.
the rent was right, and we used to run our youth wrestling out of there too. There was no heat in the winter. It was bad, but it was kids don't care. If they love wrestling, they will wrestle anywhere.
Mhm.
I've done a lot of crazy things with wrestling. Building a wrestling room in my basement, having club there. Then I built this really big pavilion outside my house. We used to wrestle outside under the pavilion. It was always something goofy, but the kids liked it.
So, and what was after Honkamonk? Because we clearly know nowadays it's not really around. So, what was your next club venture?
I teamed up with Coach Annabali from Natick, and we did Cobra Wrestling Club at Natick High School. So we did that for a while. Then the area in town that I lived in was called Wadsworth Village in Franklin. So, I had a club at the house. Still the same thing, opened it up to everybody. Anybody wanted to come. I think our first two members were Mike Ragusa and who's the other kid? They were both New England champs. They wrestled for Foxborough. And Jeff Parker. They both wrestled at Buffalo. They were the first two kids to sign up at my club at the house. And we would average, it wasn't a really big room in the basement. I had to get out of there because it was starting to stink out the house. My wife was getting pissed about we could fit 15, 20 kids in there, had showers down there and everything else, but it was bad. So that's when we moved outside. But from there was Wadsworth Wrestling Club. And then we had a big facility where we used to run tournaments. I took a lease on a big space, a 15,000 square foot space, and that was fun too. Why not a full-time wrestling facility? We ran tournaments out there, did a bunch of things, but it was always there's all kinds of expenses involved in that, and not that I was in it to make wrestling to make money. Be nice to make a little money, but I didn't care, just to keep it going. There were a couple of years too. What's that?
No, I was just saying, yeah, you're not in it for the money. You're in it, kind of to just for the sport and to give the kids the exposure and the time to wrestle.
Yeah, and as long as I don't have to pay anything to go on these trips, like we were in Florida this summer at the Disney Duels, and my expenses get paid, but it never works out like that. You always lose money somewhere for something. Something always comes up, but it's so much fun, you don't care.
Yeah. So, what were some struggles that you just encountered, developing all these clubs? Were there any like reoccurring struggles, or what setbacks did you have to face?
Yeah, I think the biggest setbacks in wrestling is complacency. It's like we went on tick there for 6 years, so hey, I'm going to do this every year, And then you hit a wall. You hit a wall, and it's like, whoa, reality just hit. It's just nothing. And then it's like you get back to work. The formula is still the same, hard work. I would always say, if your kids aren't doing it in the off season, what are you doing as a coach? What are you doing? We try to challenge the kids to say, hey, try to outwork your coaches. Right? They're staying busy. They're doing things. Coaching wrestling is like wrestling itself. The more you do, the better you get. And it's not just for your own kids. It's like for any kid that comes along that wants to be a part of your club. And so the struggles are, I think, complacency. I remember after that 6-year run, we hit the wall for a couple of years pretty hard. But I had a little silver lining in the cloud. I had 8th graders in the building for like 2 years. So I don't need youth wrestling because these kids could practice with us and wrestle JV. They couldn't compete on varsity. Well, I think after we hit that wall, we had, I think it was 1997. I started 6 sophomores, 7 freshmen, and a junior. They were all wrestling in eighth grade. We had a phenomenal group of athletes. I had a freshman football coach, Kirk Kummer. He did a great job recruiting freshman football players for us. And getting those athletes makes a huge difference. Getting athletes to come out, it's so easy to teach a good athlete how to compete.
Yeah, they just click right away with the sport usually,
Yeah, it was awesome. And, a couple of the kids who were state champs in that group that didn't know off-season wrestling. Like, I don't force the kids to do anything in the off-season. The options are there for them. And that class with all those young kids took 5th in the state. And then we went on a 3-year run. We won states in 98, 99, and 2000. In 1999, we scored over 200 points in the state tournament. We had a win after the first day. So it's just like we had.
Oh, man. You had it clinched after the first day, you said?
We won it after we were 110 points ahead.
Insane. I don't know if I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, of course, we wrestled the next day.
Yeah. It's not like you guys just forfeited every wrestling match,
I think we had 11. I think we had 12 out of 14 kids place, and we had 6 in the finals. So complacency is a big thing, and it just like same thing would happen. And just like you get complacent, you take the foot off the gas pedal, and then you get a little tired too because it's a lot of hard work, and then you build it back up. We're in a rut now, in our program. I see light at the end of the tunnel with the kids, but like this year, I had to start 5 kids that never wrestled before in the lineup, starting the lineup. So, but the kids are coming to club. We get 35, 40 kids every night at club from all over, and the kids are starting to come. Like I said earlier, I don't force them. If you want to go, this is what we're doing. We travel. Traveling is fun, and so complacency, I think, is a killer in the sport.
And when you say you get these kids coming to club, you're talking about New England Gold, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, New England Gold. After Wadsworth, that was a 4-year project. We tried to get it going and just couldn't do it. And so I was ready to kind of give up the club thing, but I just said, we worked really hard to develop a club theme. And so Jeff Gore again, who was part of USA Wrestling back in the early 80s and helped develop it. Hey, why don't you call your club New England Gold? So I looked for another facility. I made a deal with a friend of mine that I rented from before. That was a tough time too. Like my wife had just passed away, and I was in a financial downfall. Left the family business. We own a restaurant in town in Franklin, and left that after so many years of working there. But I thank my family, my wife, and all the people back in Franklin that allowed me to pursue wrestling because I would just take off. My brothers put up with me. My wife would put up with me. I used to tell her, well, I'm either at wrestling or at work. I don't go to the bars. I don't, whore around. And that's it. It was a lot easier when my kids started wrestling. But
Yeah, yeah, I want to talk about that too, because your kids, they wrestled for you, right?
yeah, that was such a great experience. I loved it. Uh,
They're pretty successful too, it seems, right?
yeah, it's like I didn't care if they ever won a match, and I conveyed that to them. The two out of the four boys wrestled. The younger two just dabbled with it, but it was like, I remember talking to my son CJ, who my oldest boy, who um, despised athletics. That's what he told me at one time. He despised athletics, and I was trying everything. Hey, just try it. I even paid him $100 to go out for wrestling when he was in like the sixth grade, seventh grade. They took him to youth wrestling, and he was miserable. Come home, he goes, I go, Dad, goes, can I have my $100? I go, yeah. So I paid him the $100, and he said, I quit. You didn't say I had to stay in the team. He quit. So he didn't start wrestling until like halfway through his eighth grade year. He wrestled with his uncle, my brother Danny, a little bit, and I asked him, I go, hey, what are you going to do in high school next year? I go, I want to be a professional wrestler. I go, I didn't laugh. I go, well, those guys are all athletes. They play football, they lift weights, they got a wrestling background. He decided to start wrestling. But once he caught the eye of the tiger, I mean, yeah, I was just hoping that someday he would qualify for states. And he went from like taking a fifth in the section his sophomore year to fifth in New England's his junior year, and winning New England's and winning the National Open in Virginia Beach, becoming a New England champ. So it was just a great experience.
And you said
You
he
know,
only really truly started in eighth grade, right?
yeah, he really
Wow.
truly started in eighth grade.
You,
And
you hear about kids like that, you think, they started wrestling like when they were like 6 or 7 or something, but just shows, like we were talking about, like athleticism and just a drive, it'll click easier.
yes, definitely. And he wasn't the greatest athlete. I know he doesn't like to hear that, but he just was driven. He saw something, and he
Matters
was
almost
driven.
more.
Yeah, and so my other son, Nick, he really did do a lot of off-season wrestling. He had an earlier start, but a wicked athlete. And, he placed in New England. He was a two-time state champ, all-state champ. And senior year, he got a concussion. Opt out of wrestling in the States. We were in the state dual finals that year. He wanted to wrestle in that, save himself for that. And that was a great way for him to end his career. End up pinning his kid, and we won the match.
Mhm.
So, but I give a lot of credit to my wife Gail. She was a saint. All through high school. I dated her. I even told her one time, "Hey, I've been doing athletics when we first started dating. She was a freshman. I was a junior in high school. Because I've been doing sports. They come first. I've been doing it a lot longer than I've known you." And then it's like, she went for that, and but she was the tough one in the family. She was tough, mentally tough, and I was kind of the softy. She's the one that kind of rode my boys to become successful.
Hey,
You know?
they say behind every tough man, there's a tougher woman. So
Yes,
I'll definitely
yes,
see you there.
yeah. And so we ran New England Gold for we're in our 11th year now. And like I said, Jeff Gore came up with a name. And probably one of the other struggles, we're really good at developing kids from scratch, and we take pride in that. We like to work with everybody. And sometimes you lose kids here and there. They think the grass is greener somewhere else, and that's okay. Diversification is a good thing. But I've had several kids that have started wrestling late, and because we concentrate on fundamentals, they have a lot of success. The most successful one's probably Danny Telhada, who came out as a freshman, and he was in the JV room. We had two practices because we had a tiny wrestling room back then. And so he would practice for an hour in the afternoon, and then the varsity would come in. towards the end of his freshman year, I brought him up to work out with us. I go, who the hell is this kid? He was driving everybody nuts. But here's a kid there that same thing, caught the eye of the tiger, decided with his teammates, 3 or 4 of his teammates, to wrestle 100 matches in the off season. He used to run the club and run home. It was like a 2.5, 3 mile run, and really dedicated. He ended up winning New England's twice. Took 6th in the country. He was in the national semifinals at the NHSCA, and he was a 4-year wrestler. You know, never went anywhere else. I've had a lot of kids like that. I don't know. I think we're really good at building fundamentals and getting the kids to compete in wrestling. So competing in the off season is important. It's fun to go to club, but if you don't compete, it's really hard to see the benefits.
So we talked about a little bit before about New England Gold, how you guys focus on fundamentals and stuff. But what else do you think is important for a club to just do in order to just grow and succeed?
It's a little bit of everything. Staff is really important, not just one coach. A little diversification in the staff is really important. And asking for help, bringing different people in. I think we have a great staff, and we've had a bunch of great coaches in the past. They've all contributed in some way or form at club. Being diverse with the staff, having a proper facility, convenience for workouts too. You can't just have like only 2 days a week and limited time. So it'd be good if like you had options, like if you want to run a clinic or something on a certain day, you have that space. I think that's important. But I think one of the most important things is having introductory programs like Intro to Wrestling, intermediate wrestling. You got to have a feeder system for a club. It's very hard to build a successful club without some kind of feeder system where you're going to get a kid in the 2nd or 3rd grade and he's going to be with you hopefully all through high school. Mm-hmm. And that'll build a lot of success. I think traveling, you need to go and compete. You got to bite the bullet and take kids places. If you just run a club and don't do anything with the kids, why would the kids go there? That's really important. So I think it's a combination of everything. I've been fortunate enough to have all outstanding coaches, good people. I've always said there's nothing but good people in wrestling, like yourself and others. It's a great sport. Very seldom do you get that one a-hole. They're all good people in wrestling. Working together with other clubs too. Do a lot of stuff with Dungeon, Doughboy, Team Aliens. I think Team Aliens has done a fantastic job. Coach Z-Man and George. And George was one of my club wrestlers back in the day at Wadsworth. And his dad was part of that too. And, he comes to us, we do things. I have his kids, he has my kids. I think he's done a great job just building a brand for himself with Team Aliens. And it's a little different concept. They're thinking outside the box where they're just going to do duels because they really can't have a regular facility to practice at. So he'll just take kids who want to do duels. And it's a dual team club, something different, mm-hmm. But he's done a fantastic job at it. And I think Z-Man's a really good guy. George is too. I think Isaiah does a lot of good for inner city kids, and people sometimes don't recognize that. And he's a young guy. He's not even 27 yet. So the future's really
older
bright.
Than me there, yeah. Like you said, it's almost like you in a way, being around and wrestling like that at such a young age,
Yeah, I've been trying to mentor him, give him some ideas, but you know what? He's a sharp dude. He's getting a lot done. He's going on every weekend, going somewhere. That's a lot of work, mm-hmm. And he's got the energy to do it. God bless him. But it's a combination of everything. If you want to develop a club, I think probably the most important thing is your staff, and a feeder program, some kind of feeder system or youth program.
So kind of finishing things up a little bit, I want to hear about your favorite wrestling memories from when you were a wrestler, when you're coaching at Franklin, and then like a club memory. You know what I mean?
Sure. Jeepers. My wrestling career was very dull.
That's okay.
So there's no real highlights. Maybe being captain of the team my junior and senior year. That was probably about it. With the high school team, God, I don't know. We've had a share of titles. We won states 11 times, and it's hard to I get kids wrestlers from those past teams always think that their team's the best.
Mm-hmm.
But there are different levels. We've had great dual meet teams. Probably the best dual meet team I ever had was in 2018 or 17. But they weren't a great tournament team. I've had great tournament teams that were okay dual meet teams. So probably the greatest memory wrestling-wise at the high school was when my son CJ won in New England's, because I promised him at one point while he was wrestling that if he ever won in New England's, I'd buy him a Hummer. What a mistake that! I never thought he'd get there. Never mind.
Well, that's your mistake then.
And then his junior year, he loses in the semifinals by a couple of points. I'm like, holy cow!
Almost had to buy him a Hummer.
Yeah. And so he says, hey, when are you going to buy my Hummer? He goes, well, I think someday I am going to buy something for him. So, but in high school, that was probably it. There were a lot of special moments at Franklin High with overachieving. We had several teams that were overachievers. They just wrestled a lot of heart and a lot of toughness and grit. So I would say that in club wrestling, God, maybe placing at the Nationals at the Disney Duels. We made the national semifinals there one year, and we beat a team that from Ohio, Fitch Wrestling. It was a prep school. I think it was Fitch Wrestling. And they were in our pool the year before, and they beat us pretty handily. And the guy comes up to me, the coach. We won our pool the next year. We went 9-0 or 10-0. And the coach comes up to me and goes, hey, we wrestled you guys last year. And we beat you pretty handily. And, what you do, load up this year? I saw you won your pool, but we're wrestling each other in the gold bracket in the preliminary rounds. And I go, oh, it's the same kids. It was exactly all the same kids. I go, it's the same kids from last year. So I'm thinking, all right, well, whatever. We scheduled JV exhibition matches afterwards and everything else. And so we go out there, we win. We beat him. He was mortified. Ran off the mat, no exhibition matches. That put us in the semifinals. And so that was probably the highlight of club wrestling. It was a pretty tough tournament, and we had to win. We won 12 matches that year. We went 12-2 overall. Wow. In a 4-day span. So, and we had 3 or 4 All-Americans. So I would say maybe that. There were others too, believe me. I just can't think of them right now.
Yeah. And then, last couple of things are just how did it feel being honored with recognized and joining the National Wrestling Hall of Fame?
That was really, really nice. I had just, like I said before, I just lost my wife. I didn't want to do the ceremony because we were within a couple of months of each other. And Father John McLaughlin, who's a wrestling legend himself, talked me into doing it. I really didn't want to do it because I'll wait till next year. I really don't care. But I was really glad that I did. And my speech was about wrestling tough, mental toughness through wrestling, and what it got me through. Like that last year with my poor wife, I just told myself, I'm sucking it up. I don't care what I got to do, how long it takes. I'm going to take care of it as much as I can and as well as I can. And so, actually, when she had passed, I was so exhausted. I was trying to take care of the kids. My in-laws were terrific. They were there a lot, so I was allowed to keep coaching and running club. I was running club, working full time in the family business, and just trying to keep things organized. And so, I think being honored into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, I don't know, to me, it's sometimes not a big deal. I'd rather have a kid win a state title than get that honor, So, I use it for advertising. Hey, National Hall of Fame coach, people like that. It really doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. At the end of the day,
But
it's
a really nice thing. It's a really nice thing.
And then finally, just what's your message to kids out there who are contemplating taking that next step to push themselves for their wrestling career?
Let me see. Just gotta keep wrestling no matter what. I don't know how many kids we've had where they don't win a match for 2-3 years and they just keep coming. Eventually it circles back around. I had this one kid, Joe McGann, who cried for 2 years after every tournament in youth wrestling, didn't win a match. For 2 years, he didn't win a match. Kept going. His mother kept bringing him. The kid ended up being placed in New England twice. Made the finals his senior year. Was a 3-time state champ. Ended up wrestling at Blair Academy and won a national title there as a post-grad. There's a kid there that, didn't win a match for 2 years.
Yeah, crying after every tournament for 2 years.
Yeah, you just keep going. Have some fun with it. Just keep going. Wrestling, you earn whatever success you have in wrestling or want. You may have to work harder than some other kids, but you have to earn the right to win.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think that's some very wise words from a Hall of Fame wrestling coach right there.
Thanks.
Are there any other topics?
Just like I just think we have nothing but great parents at club, on the wrestling team, at the high school, great kids. One thing I tell the kids when we travel, I go, you screw up, I go, I'm never going to ask you to come with us again. I love the people we have at club, the coaches we have. There's a strong closeness there with everybody. And it's just, I think we have a really good, I don't know what you call it, when the parents are all there, they're all interacting with each other. A really good, what's the word would it be?
Like just
I don't
bond?
know. Maybe a bond with each other. Good karma, that's it.
Yeah.
Great karma with everybody there. So I really like that. I like the kid that wants to work hard, the kid that really struggles, kind of sucks, but he just keeps coming. And that's where the coaching enjoyment comes from. A lot of these other coaches don't realize that anybody can shine a shoe, but when you can take a kid that can't walk and chew gum at the same time, and he doesn't have to be a champion, but become successful at some level with the sport, that's a high for a coach. That's where I get my highs, is just watching kids being able to compete and not necessarily be a champ. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, but getting the most out of a kid and developing somebody from scratch to finish.
Yeah. And like you said, New England Gold, you need that feeder program where hopefully you could do that,
Yeah.
All right, Carmine, it was great talking to you. Do you have anything else you'd like to touch on?
I want to thank you very much. I'm actually didn't know, I'm not the greatest social media guy. I've been doing a little more lately, but this is fantastic for promoting the sport. Um, Rob's dad told me all about it, and it's like, wow, I didn't even know. So I'm gonna spread your links, whatever you have. I'm gonna tell all our club kids to watch it, and I think you do a fantastic job recognizing people and providing an opportunity to be recognized.
Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Just for everyone, I know everyone in this sport works very hard, so they deserve the spotlight.